The fairy lights I'd spent all morning stringing between the old oak trees in our backyard twinkled like captured stars. Lauder, light and bubbly as the Prosecco we were serving, drifted on the warm, early summer air. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. Our daughter, Amelia, her face radiant with accomplishment and relief, was a vision in her white sundress. The cap and gown she'd worn just hours earlier now, carefully laid across a chair in the house. This party, this moment, was the culmination of everything Gregory and I had worked for, a celebration of the wonderful young woman we had raised. For 28 years, I'm walking by this. Our life had been a carefully constructed edifice of shared dreams, mortgages, late night study sessions, and soccer practices. And from my vantage point near the catered buffet, it looked solid as a fortress. I watched Gregory across the lawn. He was holding court near the grill, a glass of expensive bourbon in his hand, his business associate laugh echoing a little too loudly. He looked handsome, distinguished, silvering at the temples in a way that made women half his age look twice. He caught my eye and gave me a small, tight smile. It was a smile I'd seen a lot lately, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. For months, I'd told myself it was stress from his real estate development company. We needed to tighten our belts, he'd said, for our retirement. I'd agreed without question. We were a team. Beside him stood Cassandra Wells. Younger, of course. Her laughter was a high, tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. She was supposedly a friend, someone I'd met through a charity committee. I'd had her over for lunch, shared confidences, listened to her woes about the dating scene in the city. Now, she stood beside my husband, her hand resting for a fraction of a second too long on his forearm, a gesture of casual intimacy that screamed volumes in the silent language of betrayal. I saw the look that passed between them, a flash of shared understanding of a secret world that didn't include me. And I saw something else, too. I saw the glances from our supposed friends. Carol, my college roommate, suddenly finding the pattern on her napkin fascinating when I looked her way. Mark, Gregory's golfing buddy, given a weak, pitting smile before turning his back. They knew. The thought landed not like a bombshell, but like a quiet, cold stone in the pit of my stomach. How long had they known? How many dinner parties had I hosted? How many secrets had I shared? While they watched me, the oblivious wife, with a mixture of pity and contempt. The fortress I was admiring moments before, was a facade, a Hollywood set, and I was the only one who didn't have the script. But they were wrong about that. I had the script. In fact, I'd written the entire third act. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. There was just a profound, glacial calm that had settled over me in the past few months. It was the calm of a general who has already positioned her armies, set her traps, and was now simply watching the enemy walk into the kill zone. Amalia came over and wrapped her arms around my waist. Isn't this the best day? Mom, everyone's here. Thank you for doing all this. I kissed the top of her head, inhaling the scent of her floral perfume. You deserve it, sweetie. All of it. I am so proud of you. My love for her was a fierce, protective fire, the only truly warm thing inside me right now. This day was for her. I would not let him ruin it. Not completely. Then Gregory, tapping a fork against his glass, called for everyone's attention. A hush fell over the 50 or so guests. Friends, family, Amelia's college friends. A sea of expectant faces turned towards him. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice smooth and confident, the voice he used to close deals, to celebrate my brilliant daughter, Amelia. Amelia, Your mother and we are just bursting with pride." He raised his glass to her, and she beamed, her eyes shining. He took a sip of his bourbon. "This, David, marks a new chapter, a graduation, an ending, and a new beginning. And in that spirit of new beginnings, I have another announcement to make." He paused. The air crackled with anticipation. I knew what was coming. I had played this moment over in my mind 1,000 times, each time with a different, more violent ending. But the reality was going to be much quieter and far more devastating. He turned his gaze from Amelia to me. The tight smile was back, but this time it was edged with something that looked almost like pity. "Bianca and I," he said, his voice dropping into a somber, rehearsed tone, "have decided to go our separate ways. After 28 years, we've grown apart. It's amicable, of course. We'll always be family because of Amelia, but it's time for me to start a new chapter in my life as well." A collective gasp went through the crowd. Amelia's smile evaporated, replaced by a mask of pure, horrified disbelief. Her eyes darted from her father to me, searching for an explanation, for a sign that this was some kind of sick joke. But the final blow was yet to come. Gregory's gaze shifted to Cassandra, who was now looking at her feet with a practiced display of modesty. He reached out and gently took her hand. "And I'll be starting that new chapter with Cassandra." The silence that followed was absolute. It was so complete I could hear the buzz of a bee hovering over the rose bushes. The party, my daughter's perfect day, had just been detonated. Friends who hadn't known looked shocked, their mouths agape. Those who had known shifted uncomfortably, a flush of shame coloring their cheeks. Carol wouldn't even look at me. Amelia's voice was a choked whisper. "Dad, what are you doing?" Gregory ignored her, his eyes locked on me. He was expecting tears, hysteria, a screaming match that would paint him as the long-suffering finally escaping a shrew. He wanted to be the victim who had bravely spoken his truth. He wanted to control the narrative. I gave him none of it. Slowly, deliberately, I set my champagne flute down on the table. I walked towards him, my steps even and measured. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea. I could feel every eye on me dissecting my reaction. I stopped directly in front of him, so close I could smell the bourbon on his breath. His confident smirk wavered, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. This was not the reaction he'd rehearsed. "Why, this..." I looked from his face to Cassandra's. She tried to meet my gaze with defiance, but her chin trembled slightly. She was just a child, playing a game she didn't understand, about to be caught in the crossfire of a war she had no idea was already lost. "Congratulations, Gregory," I said, my voice clear and steady, carrying across the silent yard. "On your new beginning." Then I reached into the small clutch I was carrying and pulled out a crisp, white, letter-sized envelope. It was surprisingly heavy. I held it out to him. "What's this?" he asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. "A graduation present," I said. "For you. Don't open it now. Wait until you get home." He took it hesitantly, his fingers brushing against mine. The contact sent a jolt of ice through my veins. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married, the boy I'd fallen in love with in a college library. The memory was like a ghost, thin and powerless against the cold reality of the man standing before me. I turned to my daughter. Her face was a mess of tears and confusion. "Mom, what is happening?" I cupped her cheek, my thumb stroking away a tear. "This is not about you, my love. This is about your father's choices. Do not let this poison your day. We will talk later, I promise." I kissed her forehead, a long, lingering press of my lips. I love you more than words can say. And then without a backward glance at the man I had spent more than half my life with, or the woman who had replaced me, or the friends who had betrayed me, I turned and walked away. I walked through the silent crowd, my head held high, my steps echoing the silent beat of a war drum only I could hear. I walked out of the garden, out of the party, and out of the life that had been a beautiful, comfortable lie. Walking this, the lock of the front door clicking shut behind me was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. My new beginning had already started. The drive felt surreal. The familiar streets of our suburban neighborhood, the manicured lawns and cheerful mailboxes seemed like a set from a movie about someone else's life. I didn't go far, just to a quiet park overlooking a small lake a few towns over. I sat on a bench, the heavy silence a welcome balm after the suffocating tension of the party. The envelope I'd given Gregory wasn't a mystery to me. I knew its contents intimately. It was the culmination of 3 months of sleepless nights, quiet fury, and meticulous planning. The unraveling had started with a single, innocuous line item on our Amex statement. Papillon Jewelers, 8 doth 750. I didn't own anything from Le Papillon. I remembered asking Gregory about it. He'd waved it away dismissively. Oh, that's a corporate gift for a client's wife. Closed a big deal in the Henderson building. It made sense, or so I told myself. His business involved schmoozing, and lavish gifts weren't unheard of. But a small, persistent splinter of doubt lodged itself in my mind. I was, by trade and by nature, a numbers person. Before Amelia was born, I was a forensic accountant, a bloodhound who could sniff out a single falsified decimal point in a mountain of financial data. I'd given it up to raise our daughter, managing our family's finances with the same precision, but the instincts never leave you. Numbers don't lie. They tell stories. You just have to know how to listen. So I started listening. Late at night, after Gregory was asleep, I'd slipped down to my home office. The password to his personal accounts was laughably Mealy 1998. His arrogance was as a chill as heel. He never imagined I would look. He saw me as Bianca the mother, Bianca the hostess, not Bianca, the woman who could financially dismantle a person and not break a sweat. The story the numbers told was ugly. It wasn't just the necklace. There were weekend trips to boutique hotels in wine country, charged to a credit card I didn't know he had. I'm walking by this. There were payments to a leasing company for a sporty little convertible, not the sensible sedan he drove to work. And then there was the money. Large as systematic transfers from our joint investment portfolio. The one he'd told me we couldn't touch. The one we had to let grow for retirement, into a private account under his name only. From there, smaller, regular payments were being made. To Cassandra Wells, seeing her name on the bank transfers felt like a physical blow. It wasn't an anonymous affair. It was her. The woman I'd offered tea and sympathy to. The one who had admired my garden and asked for the recipe for my lemon bundt cake. The hypocrisy of it was breathtaking. He was bleeding our future dry to fund his mid-life crisis, all while lecturing me about using coupons and delaying the kitchen renovation I'd wanted for years. The thrifty retirement plan he'd sold me was a lie designed to keep me from looking too closely at the accounts he was pillaging. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was stealing from our family, from Amelia, from the future we had supposedly been building together. The anger came first, a white, hot, volcanic rage. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to confront him and watch him squirm. But the forensic accountant in me took over. Emotion was a liability. Data was power. A messy Emotional confrontation would get me nowhere. A calculated evidence-based attack, however, could be devastating. My first call was to Eleanor Vance, the sharpest divorce attorney in the state and old college acquaintance. I laid everything out for her in her stereo. Glass walled office, the bank statements, the credit card bills, the property searches I'd run showing he was looking at condos near the waterfront with Cassandra. Eleanor listened, her face impassive, occasionally making a note on a legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her leather chair. It's a classic, Bianca. Textbook infidelity and financial dissipation. We can take him to the cleaners, but it will be a fight. He'll draw it out, claim the money was for business investments, try to paint you as vindictive. There's more, I said, my voice quiet. I reached into my bag and pulled out a faded, folded document. I slid it across the polished mahogany desk. It was signed this a week before our wedding. Eleanor unfolded it. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. A prenuptial agreement from 28 years ago. She scanned the pages, her eyes widening slightly as she read. My God, this is ironclad. And this, she tapped a paragraph with her pen. This infidelity clause, this is a thing of beauty. In the event of proven marital infidelity by either party, the unfaithful party forfeits all claims to the primary residence, any and all shared investment properties, and 75% of the combined retirement portfolio. She looked up at me, a slow smile spreading across her face. Whose idea was this? Mine, I said. I was just starting my career. I'd already seen two of my mentors, brilliant women, get financially ruined in divorces. Gregory thought it was hilarious, unromantic. He's sure, honey, whatever makes you happy. We'll never need it. He signed it without even reading it properly. I remembered that day clearly. He'd been so cocky, so sure of our forever, that he treated my financial prudence as a charming little quirk. He had no idea he was signing his own death warrant. He's forgotten this exists, Eleanor stated, not as a question. I'm certain of it, I replied. It's been in a safe deposit box for nearly 3 decades. Bianca, Eleanor said, her voice filled with a newfound respect. This changes everything. This isn't a fight. This is an execution. The plan solidified that day. We would let Gregory think he was in control. We would let him build his case, make his plans, choose his moment. And we would strike first. The element of surprise was everything. The final piece of the puzzle came from the most unexpected source, Gregory's younger sister, Sarah. She called me one Tuesday afternoon, her voice thick with tears. Bianca, I have to tell you something. I can't live with it anymore. She'd known for almost a year. Gregory had confided in her, and she'd made him promise to end it, to work on his marriage. He swore he would. But then she saw him with Cassandra at a restaurant downtown, looking for all the world like a happy couple. He'd lied to her, just like he was lying to me. Sarah and I had always been close, closer than she was with her own brother in many ways. His betrayal of her trust was the final straw. She told me everything. How he'd called me complacent. How he'd complained that our life was boring. How he and Cassandra had laughed about my budgeting obsession, not knowing it was the very money they were spending. And she told me his plan to announce the divorce at Amelia's graduation party. He thought it would be a clean break, a public statement that would prevent a messy, drawn-out scene. He wanted to rip the Band-Aid off in one go, cushioned by the presence of friends who would, he assumed, support him. That phone call was the hardest part, hearing the casual cruelty in his words relayed by his own sister. broke through my cold, analytical shell. That night, I cried. I mourned the man I thought I had married. I mourned the 28 years of my life I had dedicated to a partnership that he viewed as a prison of boredom. And when the tears stopped, all that was left was steel. The day before the party, while Gregory was at a business lunch, a lunch I knew, thanks to Sarah, was Cassandra to finalize their plans. I was at the courthouse with Eleanor. We filed the divorce petition. We filed an emergency motion to freeze our joint assets, citing financial malfeasance. We attached copies of the bank transfers, the prenuptial agreement, and a sworn affidavit from me detailing my findings. By the time Gregory stood up to make his grand speech, he was already the defendant in a lawsuit he didn't know existed. He thought he was firing the first shot, but the war was already over. I had won. Inside the envelope I gave him was a copy of the court stamped divorce petition, highlighting the section citing infidelity. Tucked inside, that was a printout of a single bank statement showing Oz and 50,000 and transfer from our retirement fund to his private account. And on top of it all, a simple, handwritten note on my personal stationery. It contained only one word: checkmate. Sitting on that park bench, watching the ducks glide across the water, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. It wasn't glee. It wasn't joyful. It was the quiet, grim satisfaction of a difficult job well done. The demolition of my old life was complete. Now, it was time to start building the new one. The silence in the house was a living thing. It filled the cavernous spaces of the foyer, clung to the expensive drapes in the formal living room, and pooled in the shadows of the high ceilings. This house, our home for 2 decades, had always been filled with noise. Amelia's piano lessons, the chaos of teenage sleepovers, the murmur of dinner parties. Now, it was a mausoleum of memories, and I was its sole keeper. It was almost 11 p.m. when I heard his car pull into the driveway, the crunch of tires on gravel far too aggressive. The front door slammed open with a force that rattled the family photos on the console table. I didn't move from the armchair where I sat waiting in the dimly lit family room, a glass of water on the coaster beside me. Bianca. The roar was primal, the sound of a cornered animal. Gregory stormed into the room, his face a mottled mask of crimson and white. The carefully tailored suit he'd worn to the party was rumpled, his tie yanked loose. He was waving the papers from the envelope, his hand shaking with rage. Cassandra was nowhere in sight. He was alone. Good. What the hell is this? He spat, throwing the papers onto the polished oak coffee table. Coffee table. My handwritten note fluttered to the floor. Checkmate. I took a slow sip of water before answering, my calmness a stark contrast to his apoplexy. It's a divorce petition, Gregory. Stamped by the court clerk yesterday morning. It seems you're a little late to your own party. His eyes bulged. Yesterday. You filed yesterday. Before, how could you? How could I? I allowed a sliver of the ice in my veins to enter my voice. You stand up in front of our daughter, I'm by this, our family and our friends, and you publicly humiliate me. You announce your affair with a woman I considered a friend. You try to destroy my life in the most theatrical way possible, and you're asking me how I could file for divorce. This was supposed to be amicable. He yelled, pacing back and forth like a caged tiger. We were supposed to handle this like adults. You've turned it into a war. You declared war, Gregory, not me, I said, my voice level. You declared it months ago when you started siphoning money from our retirement accounts to buy your little girlfriend jewelry and lease her a car. You declared it when you lied to my face about tightening our belts while you were planning a new life on my dime. I'm just the one who decided to fight back." He stopped pacing, a look of genuine shock on his face. How did you know about the money?" "I'm a forensic accountant, you idiot," I said, the insult slipping out, sharp and satisfying. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I was so stupid, so complacent that you could bleed our future dry and I just keep planning minutes and arranging flowers?" The blood drained from his face. He finally understood he wasn't dealing with the wife he had taken for granted. He was dealing with a professional, but the true knockout punch was yet to come. "It doesn't matter," he stammered, trying to regain his footing. "So you found out. We'll split everything 50-50, like the law says. I'll even let you keep the house for a while, for Amelia's sake." The sheer audacity of his magnanimity was almost comical. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. "Oh, Gregory, you really should read the things you sign." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about our prenuptial agreement, the one we signed in 1997. The one you laughed at." He stared at me, his mind clearly racing, trying to dredge up a memory from nearly 3 decades ago. I could see the moment he remembered it. A flicker of panic entered his eyes. "That thing. That's not valid anymore. It was years ago." "It's perfectly valid," I said, leaning forward. "And I'd like to draw your attention to Article 4, Section B, the infidelity clause, the one that states that in the case of proven marital infidelity, the guilty party forfeits all claim to the primary residence." I gestured around the beautifully decorated room. "This house, my house." His jaw went slack. "It also states," I continued pressing my advantage, "that you forfeit all claim to any shared vacation or investment properties." I pictured our charming lake house, the one we were supposed to retire to, my lake house. "And the real kicker, Gregory," I said, standing up to face him, "is that you forfeit 75% of our combined retirement portfolio. The same portfolio you've been illegally draining. By the way, the court has already granted my motion to freeze all our joint assets effective this morning. Your little slush fund is gone." He looked like I had physically struck him. He staggered back and sank onto the sofa, his head in his hands. Powerful man from the party was gone, replaced by a deflated, panicked shell. "You can't prove it," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "It's my word against yours." "Is it?" I asked sweetly, "because I have bank statements showing wire transfers directly to Cassandra Wells. I have credit card receipts for hotels you checked into with her, and I have a sworn affidavit from a witness who's willing to testify about the nature and duration of your relationship." "Who?" he demanded, looking up. "Who would do that?" "Your sister," I said simply. The look on his face, a cocktail of betrayal, fury, utter defeat, was something I would cherish for a very long time. He knew he was beaten. He had no allies, no resources, no escape route. He had walked into the most elegant, legally binding trap I could devise. But it's not just Sarah's testimony," I added, delivering the final, crushing blow. "I also have recordings." His head snapped up. "What?" "For the past month, since Sarah told me everything, I've had a voice-activated recorder in your home office. The one you share with Cassandra on your little work-from-home days. I have hours of you two, discussing the affair, planning your grand announcement at the party, waffling about how you were going to leave me with just enough to be comfortable, while you two started your new life with the bulk of our fortune. My favorite part is when you do a mocking impression of me asking about the budget. It's very illuminating. A learner seems to think a judge will find it illuminating, too. He was speechless. There was nothing left to say. I had taken his every move, anticipated his every strategy, and checkmated him from a position he never even knew was vulnerable. Get out, I said, my voice quiet but unyielding. This is my house. He mumbled, defiant to the last. Not anymore, I corrected him. You have 24 hours to pack a bag and leave. If you're still here by this time tomorrow, I'll have the sheriff escort you out. Your lawyer can contact my lawyer to arrange a time to collect the rest of your things. He stared at me, his eyes filled with a hatred that was terrifying in its intensity. He saw me, truly saw me, for the first time in years, and he was horrified. He stumbled to his feet and walked out of the room without another word. A few moments later, I heard the front door open and then close with a soft final click. I stood alone in the silent house, the adrenaline slowly draining away, leaving a hollow exhaustion in its wake. The battle was over, and I was left standing on the field, victorious, but utterly alone. The days that followed were a blur of legal paperwork and gut-wrenching conversations. The most difficult by far was with Amelia. I sat with her in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by faded posters and stuffed animals, and told her the whole story. I didn't spare her the details of her father's financial betrayal. She was an adult now, a graduate with a degree in economics, and she deserved the unvarnished truth. Her initial shock gave way to a steely anger that mirrored my own. He stole from us, she said, her voice tight, while I was taking out student loans. He was buying that woman jewelry with money that should have been for my education, for your retirement. And he ruined my graduation. He deliberately chose my day to drop a bomb on our family. He did, I confirmed, my heart aching for her. And I am so sorry, honey. Don't be sorry, Mom, she said, taking my hand. You did what you had to do. You protected yourself. You protected us. Proud of you. In that moment, our bond, always strong, was forged into something unbreakable. We were a team now. The news of the divorce and its brutal terms spread through our social circle like wildfire. My phone was a constant buzz of texts and calls. Some were from the friends who had known, offering pathetic, mealy-mouthed apologies. We didn't know what to do. Bianca, we were in such an awkward position. I deleted their messages without replying. Their cowardice was as much a betrayal as Gregory's infidelity. Others, however, were calls of support from people who had been on the periphery, who now saw Gregory for the man he truly was. The confrontation I was dreading, yet anticipating, came a few days later. Gregory, with Cassandra in tow, showed up at his sister Sarah's house. I was there, helping Sarah pack some things for a trip I had insisted on paying for to get her away from the inevitable family fallout. Gregory barged in, his face contorted with rage. Yeah! He screamed at Sarah. How could you betray your own brother? Sarah, a typically quiet and gentle woman, stood her ground. You betrayed me first, Greg. You lied to me. You betrayed Bianca and your own daughter. I chose to stand with the family you were trying to destroy. Cassandra, looking nervous but defiant, stepped forward. This is all her fault, she said, pointing a manicured finger at me. She manipulated you all with her little prenuptial trap. Gregory loves me. We deserve to be happy. Before I could even respond, Amelia, who had driven over to meet us, stepped between us. She faced her father, her eyes blazing. Happy, she said, her voice dripping with scorn. You want to be happy. Was that what you were thinking about on my graduation day? The one day that was supposed to be about me, my hard work, my future. You made it about you, your pathetic affair, and your greed. You stood there and you broke mom's heart, and you embarrassed me in front of everyone I care about. Amelia, you don't understand. Gregory began, his voice pleading. Oh, I understand perfectly. She cut him off. I understand that you are a coward who stole from his own family. You're not just a cheater, Dad. You're a thief. Did you enjoy that expensive bourbon at my party? I hope so. Because bought with money you were stealing from mom's retirement fund. Cassandra paled, the reality of the financial situation finally dawning on her. This wasn't the glamorous new life she'd been promised. Amelia turned her gaze on Cassandra, looking her up and down with disdain. And you ate lunch in our house. This? You pretended to be my mother's friend. I hope whatever he bought you was worth it, because it's all you're ever going to get. He has nothing. With that, Amelia turned her back on them both, walked over to me, and put her arm around my shoulders. Let's go, Mom. They're not worth our time. We walked out, leaving Gregory and Cassandra standing in the middle of Sarah's living room, exposed and defeated. As we got into the car, I looked back and saw Cassandra in a heated argument with Gregory. The cracks in their great love story were already beginning to show. The court proceedings were a formality. Gregory's lawyer tried to challenge the prenuptial agreement, but the judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, took one look at the evidence, the infidelity clause, the bank statements, and the transcripts of the recordings, and threw the challenge out. The asset freeze was made permanent. The terms of the prenup were upheld to the letter. Gregory's downfall was swift and total. As Amelia had predicted, Cassandra was gone within a month. Once it became clear that the waterfront condo and lavish lifestyle were never going to materialize. His reputation in the business community was shattered. No one wanted to work with a man who was not only a cheat, but also a financial fraud. Friends, even the ones who had been complicit, now avoided him. He had to sell his company for pennies on the dollar to pay his legal bills. The last I heard, he was living in a small rental apartment across town, a ghost of the powerful man he once was. He had lost everything. His wife, his daughter's respect, his home, his fortune, and his mistress. He had traded a kingdom for a trinket, only to find the trinket was worthless. For me, life began anew. The emptiness of the large house felt different now. It wasn't a void, it was a space filled with possibility. I sold the house, too many ghosts, and bought a chic, modern townhouse in the city closer to Amelia. I took the settlement, the fortune Gregory had tried to steal, and I invested it. But not just in the market. I invested in myself. I opened my own financial consultancy firm, Caldwell Financial Strategies for Women. I used my story, anonymously at first, as a case study. I taught women how to read financial statements, how to protect their assets, how to see the stories that numbers tell. I helped them create their own infidelity clauses, both legally and metaphorically. Plans to ensure they would never be left vulnerable, as dependent or deceived. My business thrived. I found a new purpose, a new identity. I wasn't just Bianca Caldwell, the wife, the mother. I was Bianca Caldwell, the founder, the mentor, the survivor. The woman who had been publicly discarded became a symbol of strength and resilience for others. Sometimes, late at night in my new office, overlooking the sparkling city lights, I would think about that envelope. It was more than just a declaration of war. It was my declaration of independence. Gregory thought he was ending our story, but all he did was force me to write a much better one for myself. He had been a chapter in my life, a long and significant one, but I was the author of the book. And the best parts, I knew, were still to be written.